Welcome to the Unfolding You podcast. I'm Erin Smylie Walsh, and I'm thrilled to invite you on a transformative journey of self-discovery and faith. Well, welcome to another episode of the Unfolding You podcast with me, your host, Erin Smylie Walsh. It's just such a joy to be with you here today. And today's episode is around grief. What leaves us, God fills. And I feel it's so fitting that I'm recording this episode today because this week is the 5-year anniversary of when my mom and dad went to heaven. And I lost them here as my earthly parents. And to be able to reflect on 5 years of longing for them and grief in them not physically being here, and just how the Lord has met me in those spaces, it just can give someone else hope that they too can move through grief in a way that the Lord can still fill that void in them. So the whole focus around today's episode is that grief is much bigger than just bereavement, that God meets us in it. For a lot of people, they view grief in the capacity of losing someone to death. And I've said it before, but grief does not only apply to death. Grief can apply to the end of a dream, one that you've worked your heart and soul into that has ended because of an injury, or has ended because you just haven't made that next step in order to go professional. It has, it's the end of a friendship, one you thought that would be lifelong, that has come to an end suddenly or over time. It can be the end of a season, the end of a season at a specific job, the end of a season in a specific country, the end of a season of raising children. And now they're venturing off as adults. There's so many different elements that grief can hold in certain times and seasons of life, not just death. I want to encourage us with a psalm. And I love the Psalms because the Psalms really was just David continually like groaning to the Lord, lamenting where he's at, his sorrows, being so firm in the hope of who the Lord is and meeting him where he's at. And I just love reading the Psalms where I just like go back to the Lord is hope, and he can fill those voids in our life where we don't have to. Psalm 5 verses 1-3. O Lord, hear me as I pray. Pay attention to my groaning. Other translations is pay attention to my lament. Listen to my cry for help, my King and my God. For I pray to no one but you. Listen to my voice in the morning, Lord. Each morning I bring my requests to you and wait expectantly. And I love these 3 verses because it really is this longing for the Lord to fill us. The description of lament is it's a prayer in pain that leads to trust. It's this goal, the goal of biblical lament is to recommit oneself, to hoping in God and then believing God's promises. It's a faithful and godly response to pain, suffering, and injustice. And when you, in those early stages of grief, you're sitting in moments where you just sitting in that pain. And I just love the hope that lament brings, because it's where that pain can lead to trusting God again. That He has and is always in control, where He can fill that space in us. We need to shift from this trying to fix our feelings, because that's often what a lot of us do. We're trying to fix our feelings. We're trying to sort out ourselves. We've got to move on. And we move from this trying to fix our feelings to moving into this faithful lament, where we're groaning to the Lord. We're recommitting ourselves to the hope of God's promises. And I think we always think we need to have it all figured out. We got to have this outcome sorted out. But it doesn't happen like that. It takes time. And what I love about David is he was always just so vocal with the Lord. He just lay it all out at him. And we always try to hold it together. We always trying to be okay. And He hasn't asked for that. He's asked for us to lament, to give Him our sorrows, that He can take that and give us hope. We look at grief as these non-linear waves. Because that's what it is. We think it's supposed to just be this straight line. But you have to look at grief as non-linear waves, as this consistent permeance of change that is happening, where you go from a high to a low, to an okay to a not. Where you've got the joy and you've got the sorrow. Because that is grief. Grief is this continual cycle of emotion. And I think even 5 years ago, like who I am now and who I was 5 years ago, going through all of this, having just lost my mom, not knowing whether my dad was going to survive or not, clinging on to the hope, having to grieve the loss of one parent, hoping for the other to survive, still trying to stay positive for the other one. This turmoil of emotions that you've got no narrative for because you've never experienced losing that person before. You've never experienced losing a dream that was just your everything. Or you had this idea of this life that just now is no longer going to happen. And it's having to navigate this. People think you go from A to B to C to D and you run in this alphabetical format through grief. It doesn't happen like that. You go from A to E to C to G back to A. It's this consistent cycle of emotions. And friends, what I really want to encourage you today is like just to throw it at the foot of the cross, to lament, to be hopeful, to recommit yourself to hoping in God's promises. Because I don't know how people do this without faith. I do not know how they do this without having an anchoring in the Lord. I don't. And the reality is, you don't have to go through it alone. Some ways to encourage practicing what loss leaves in us is actually naming the losses. What are you feeling in those spaces? What loss are you feeling? Name them, write them down. I know in the early times when losing my parents, I felt this abandonment. I felt orphaned. And it's so interesting having conversations with others that lose their parents or somebody really close to them. This idea of abandonment, being orphaned, especially when you lose a parent. It's this separation of your earthly parent and you as a child. It's quite common. Name the loss. Write a memory table. We still do this with our girls in particular and with each other, but we talk around the memories. There'll be something that will spark a memory, and then we talk about it. And we talk about it because we want to keep their memory alive. Because something is gone doesn't mean it didn't leave a lasting impact on your life. And that in itself is enough to be celebrated and remembered. And then having this lament scaffold where you kind of go how long will I feel like this? How long do I need to sit in this? Will I always feel this? Can I long for joy? How long till I feel joy? Is it okay to be joyful? There's sometimes you process things, and I remember going through something where I was having a conversation around a potential element of change. And from where this conversation started to where we landed up, there were a lot of variables that had shifted over a couple of months. And when I got to a point where I was going to be, I was being obedient in putting this down on paper and putting it on the table as a proposal, to it being in a situation where it was no longer relevant. And sitting there almost feeling relieved because it affirmed that that door was closed. And sometimes that's what grief does. It closes doors. It redirects our journey. And it's okay to feel that. It's okay to take stock of those moments and go, that door is closed, my journey is redirected. I can still find joy in new seasons of life. When we go through elements of grief, we take on a lot of trauma, and we carry a lot of moments where our body takes complete, like a real knocking in the end of it. And for those that go through a physical element of grief, those where seasons have ended, I want to remind you to be mindful of your body. Be compassionate towards your body during grief, because your body holds onto that element of trauma that you didn't think it could. And if you don't address that, you carry that with you. And by carrying that with you, you actually land up carrying things longer than you need to. It's okay to live. It's okay to live. Life may feel hard. Life may feel like there's no end in sight. But handing over the loss and allowing God to fill in those gaps can be quite life-giving. And I know in those early stages, I was so rugged. It took me a long time to recover from that. But I got to a point where I had to make a decision to live well. I had to make a decision to shift my mindset, to shift what I was sitting in, and moving forward to care for myself. I want to get real with you and ask you a question of where have you minimized your grief? It could be you've just never gotten over the fact that you didn't get accepted into a specific course to study at university and your entire career path had to shift. And you just haven't been able to let go of not becoming a doctor, of not going overseas, of not being able to study in a specific space. For me, the early stages of grief is I minimized the space I needed to remember. So anniversaries would come up and I'd kind of like try and carry on through the day as if it was just a normal day. And then I'd get to the end of the day and I would be hit with this avalanche of emotion because I never held space in my day to take hold of the day. And so don't minimize your grief. Allow yourself to process it, talk about it, write it down, revisit it, hold the space for it that it needs in order for you to be able to move to the next stage in your life where you go, it's not holding me down like an anchor, but I'm actually allowing it to rise with me. Because that is grief. Grief will forever change you. It will forever change the lens through which you view life. How will that lens allow you to view life? That's the question you want to ask yourself. So my challenge for you is I want you to create one tangible remembrance today. And may it be a positive one. No matter what you're grieving, may it be an element of remembrance today that brings you joy in remembering it. Write it down, put it on a post-it, stick it on your wall, stick it on your mirror, put it next to your bedside table, take a photo and put it as your screensaver on your phone. If you need to be consistently reminded of the joy, do that. I want to remember the things in my life that gave me joy, whether they are still here today or not. But I want to remember that them not being here or it not being part of my life has shifted me positively to take part in the next phase of my life. Because how you view grief will be the way in which you navigate the way forward. What I never realized was the hope that I would be for somebody else going through grief, where you'd be able to have conversations with somebody that you understand, you deeply understand. And that's always the hard thing about grief, is like you just don't fully understand it until you go through it. But don't let that be in vain. Let that be a guiding light for somebody else. Let that be a hope for someone else. So as we close, grief really does change you. But let God meet that new you. Let God journey that new season with you. Because in that change and navigating of new seasons and navigating of life, that is when you have moments of going, the Lord will carry me through both. So I want to encourage you to share this with somebody that you feel may really need this, and encourage them to lament to the Lord. I want to thank you for continually supporting the Unfolding You podcast. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share. And if you want to find out more on how you can partner with us as the podcast grows, please go and visit the website erinsmylie.com/podcast. It's also in the show notes. And I look forward to meeting you again next week. Have a good day. Bye.